Hi friends, it's Heather with Running with Scissors, and today we are doing the tutorial on your It's in the Box, your April box number 29. So that's April 2023 box number 29. So let's see what's in the box. All right, so you saw in the opening what we're making today, and this is we're calling this the kitchen gather. So it's a fork, spatula, spoon, put together with the word gather and a hanger to display in your kitchen. Of course, you have your instructions, and yep, my instructions are done ahead of time this time. Make sure you got some baby wipes and a pair of scissors handy because you'll need those. And let's see what else we have. So we have a short length of burlap ribbon. This is about 14 inches. And we also have a longer length of burlap ribbon. And then we have a couple of greens. And these are eucalyptus greens. We have a baby wipe in a bag. And as always, if your baby wipe is dried up, you can just add a little bit of water to it. That will be just fine. We have a white wedge and a yellow sponge. We have black, white, and brown paint. You can use any color paint that you might have. We have a super glue, a length of jute, and a zip tie. And then this is the hanger that you will put on the back of your spoon so it can be hung on the wall. And then of course we have our wood pieces. All right, so I'm going to close this box up and we are going to go ahead and get this guy painted. All right, the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to paint my backer board here, my oval piece, because that needs a couple of coats, and I want to get that done so it can dry while I move on to other things. As always, I do work on everything at once to make this video a little bit faster, but you guys can work on one thing at a time if you would like to. You can always follow the instruction sheet rather than follow me in the tutorial, or you can watch the tutorial in full and then work at your leisure once you've learned how to do everything. All right, so I'm going to use the soft side of my yellow sponge and my black paint, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint the oval. And you'll see that there are 4 holes drilled out of this guy here. And I'm not sure if we're going to use all 4 of those holes, but when I was designing this, in my head, it made sense that I put 4 in it just in case of how we end up mounting the bow and the greenery. So this is going to be the top of your oval. So that will come into play, of course, later when you glue it all together. So you're just going to use the soft side of your yellow sponge and your black paint, and you're going to put on one very light coat onto your oval. And remember that light paint makes it dry very quickly. By the time it's dry, you probably will be able to go back and put a second coat on. Okay, so there's our first coat of black on that, and yeah, it's almost dry, but I'm going to go ahead and just set it to the side, let it dry the rest of the way before I put that second coat on. Meanwhile, I'm going to bring my word over, and I'm going to open my white paint and use my white wedge. I'm going to dip my wedge into my white paint and get most of the paint back off of that sponge, just working the paint up into it. And then I'm going to pounce a very light coat of white paint on my word. It doesn't have to be heavy. Remember, light coats dry fast, and we'll be able to go back and put that second coat on there fairly quickly. All right, I'm gonna let that first coat dry, but while that's drying, I'm going to grab my oval circle and bring that back. And I'm gonna put the second coat of paint on this. Now this should only need 2 coats. So once we get this second coat on here, we'll be able to set this aside and let it dry. And this will be ready. All right, I'm gonna move this out of the way, let that dry all the way. And as far as I'm concerned, I am done with my black paint, so I'm just gonna close that off and set that off to the side. I should not use it anymore today. And then I'm going to put the second coat of paint on my gather sign, my gather word. Now this may need 3 coats, so you can use your judgment on that. If yours needs a 3rd coat after your second coat, let that second coat dry and then put that 3rd coat on it. Okay, there is my second coat. So I'm going to set that aside. I am not going to put a 3rd coat on mine. If yours needs a 3rd coat, go ahead and do that 3rd coat as soon as you are able to. Otherwise, set it aside and we're going to move on. We're going to move on to the knife or the fork, spoon, and spatula. And for this, we are going to use our brown paint and we're going to use our baby wipe. And we are doing the faux stain method. So I'm just going to take that baby wipe and I'm going to wrap it around a couple of fingers and dip it into my brown paint. And I am going to basically just wash the paint onto the backer board. Now, it may appear darker in some areas depending on the grain of the wood in that particular spot. So just keep your baby wipe and your stain moving and your paint moving to create the stain look. Now, when you come down to this big oval, you do not have to worry about this because it is going to be covered by the oval that we just painted black. If you want yours to be a little darker, once this is dry, you can put on a 2nd coat. I never do a 2nd coat of faux staining. So if I wipe too much in one area, I might go back over it very quickly while it's still wet, but I do not cover the whole entire thing with a 2nd coat. All right, and that's our faux staining of our spatula, fork, and spoon. All right, so you're going to want to make sure your hands are washed at this point, clean, no paint on them, because you're going to build your bow. So I'm going to just wipe the paint off of my hands real quick, and we are going to build our bow. Okay, so the way that we're gonna do this bow is we're going to take and build 4 loops, all right? So we're not gonna cut this apart. Instead, we're going to build 4 loops with it. and we're going to fold so the tail is in the center. So the tail is in the center of the bow. So let's see, to make your loops even, it might be easier if you fold your burlap in half and pinch where the center is, okay? So fold and pinch, so that's the center. Kind of crease it just a little bit so you can see. So we're going to take and we're going to bring both ends over to make 2 loops on either side, okay? So this tail end, the starter, has to come over a little bit, overlap onto the second loop so that we can secure it in there. All right, so there we have 2 loops. Now we're gonna do the same thing with this leftover tail piece. We're gonna make another loop the same size. So this part's easy because all you have to do is flatten this bow out or this loop out and fold that second piece of burlap so it's equal to both of your loops. Just like that. All right, and then we got the tail end that overlaps. Okay, so you can see this is what it looks like if I let go of it. So here's our starter, and it kind of just makes a circle and then like a zigzag. And we want to gather that all in the middle. And then we're going to take this piece, the shorter piece of burlap ribbon, and we're going to put that right in the middle, just like that, and pinch it together. And then we want to take 1 piece of greenery on either side and just overlap them just like that. Now, if you don't like how long those tails are, you can cut them with a pair of wire cutters, or if you have a good pair of scissors, you can cut them with a pair of scissors. And when I mean good, I mean that they're sharp, but not necessarily that you want to use your good scissors to cut them. Okay, so we're just gonna put the sprigs in just like that. And then we're gonna take our zip tie and we're gonna zip tie around the whole entire cluster. And we want that zip tie to be right in the middle. And we want to tighten it down very tightly because we want to make sure that we're holding our ribbons, our jute ribbon, burlap ribbon, and our greenery together. Okay, so once you got that nice and tight, you can trim the end off that zip tie, and then you can bring your tails down. Okay, and then you can mess with your bow a little bit after you get it on. I'm gonna take my tail and I'm just gonna cut it on a diagonal. I'm not doing a dovetail or anything, just cutting those 2 ends on a diagonal. And then I'm gonna take my piece of jute and I wanna cover the center of that zip tie. So I'm gonna take it and I'm gonna wrap it just a couple of times around that center, just like that, to cover that zip tie up. You might have to do 2 wraps. I just did, or you might have to do 3. I just did 2. And then I'm gonna flip it over and I'm just gonna tie 1 single knot. I'm not gonna do a double knot. I'm just tying it just to secure it real tight. And we're not done with that jute, so don't trim that. Just leave it like it is. And then I'm going to bring this guy back and I'm gonna start gluing it together. So you're gonna take your super glue and you are gonna run a line of super glue around the outside edge and a little bit in the middle. And then take your oval piece, lay it over top, and line up those holes at the top and apply pressure until it is set. All right, now we're going to take our word and don't glue over top of your existing project, because you don't want to drip any glue onto your finished project, because once you drip that glue onto it, it's pretty much impossible to get that off or to cover it up. So just pull your word to the side and put some glue on the back of your word. And then position your word onto your oval so it's in the center. And I want to put the tail of the G so it's at the bottom of the oval, okay? So I don't want that gather to be up smack dab in the middle, because our bow is gonna go up there. And if we put the gather up too high, then it will be covered by our bow. Remember, pressure activates super glue, so just give that a okay. And now we're gonna take our bow and greenery cluster, and we still have that jute on there. So now we're gonna thread each one of these ends through a top hole and a bottom hole. Okay, so we won't end up using the 2 side holes. Originally I put those side holes in there for the zip tie of the greenery, but we don't need that. So we're gonna just drop a tail end down through and a tail end down through. Now by the time you guys get your project, I may have removed those extra holes, so yours may not even have them. All right, so pull your jute on through, and then back here we're just gonna tie a quick double knot. That's left over right, and then right over left. It's a square knot. And then tighten the ends down, and then you're gonna trim off the tails. And then while we've got it flipped over, we're gonna take our hanger, our sawtooth hanger. We're gonna put a little bit of glue on the back of that, and then we're just gonna hang that or position that right on the spoon and apply some pressure to it. Pressure activates that super glue. Look at that beautiful sunshine coming in the windows. Isn't that gorgeous? You can see it all on my hands and stuff. That sunshine's wonderful. All right, and there you go. Now you're just going to position your ribbons and your tails. And there you have your Gather Kitchen sign. Hope you enjoyed this subscription box of the month, and we'll see you guys again next month.